Unexpected arrival. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Captain Zhou Chen as she piloted her small exploration vessel, the Starchaser, through an uncharted sector of the galaxy. Her mission, sanctioned by the United Earth Exploration Corps, was simple in theory but daunting in practice. Map previously unknown regions of space and search for habitable worlds. Zhou had always dreamed of venturing into the unknown. Growing up on Earth's first Mars colony, she'd spent countless nights gazing at the stars, imagining the wonders that lay beyond. Now, at 32, she was living that dream, though the reality of deep space exploration often meant long stretches of monotony punctuated by moments of sheer terror. Today was definitely shaping up to be one of the latter. Warning. Gravitational anomaly detected. The ship's AI chimed, its androgynous voice calm despite the flashing red alerts on the control panel. Zhou's hands flew over the holographic controls, her dark eyes narrowing as she assessed the situation. Define anomaly, Starchaser. Unknown gravitational source detected at bearing 047. Strength exceeding expected parameters for local stellar bodies. A chill ran down Zhou's spine. In her 5 years of deep space exploration, she'd never encountered anything like this. Initiate evasive maneuvers. Full-powered engines. The ship lurched as Zhou attempted to alter course, but the mysterious force had already taken hold. Alarms blared as the Starchaser was pulled inexorably towards the source of the anomaly. Hull integrity at 87% and falling, the AI reported. Recommend immediate entry into stasis pod for survivability. Zhou gritted her teeth, still fighting the controls. Not yet. There has to be a way out of this. But as the minutes ticked by and the ship was drawn closer to what appeared to be a swirling vortex of energy, Zhou realized she was out of options. With a frustrated growl, she initiated the emergency protocols. Starchaser, activate distress beacon. Continuous broadcast on all frequencies. She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. Begin recording. This is Captain Zhou Chen of the UE Starchaser. My ship has encountered an unknown spatial anomaly and is being pulled in. Attempting emergency stasis. If anyone receives this message, please alert Earth. Chen out. With one last look at the swirling chaos visible through the viewscreen, Zhou raced to the stasis pod. As the transparent cover slid shut, she felt the cold rush of cryogenic gases envelop her. Her last conscious thought was a fervent hope that she'd wake up again. The Starchaser plunged into the vortex, its hull creaking under immense gravitational forces. In a flash of blinding light, the ship vanished from normal space. When Zhou next opened her eyes, it was to a world of pain and confusion. Blurry shapes swam before her vision as she tried to make sense of her surroundings. She was no longer in the stasis pod, that much was clear. The air felt warm and humid, carrying unfamiliar scents. As her vision cleared, Zhou realized she was lying on some sort of examination table in a room that looked nothing like her ship. The walls seemed to pulse with an organic, bioluminescent glow. Sleek, unfamiliar equipment surrounded her. Starchaser, she croaked, her voice hoarse from disuse. There was no response from her AI companion. A door she hadn't noticed before slid open with a soft hiss, and a figure entered. Zhou's eyes widened as she took in the appearance of what was clearly an alien being. The creature was humanoid, with smooth pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. It had large, almond-shaped eyes of a deep violet hue, no visible nose, and a small mouth. Long, silvery hair flowed down its back. But what struck Zhou most was the alien's distinctly feminine form. Despite the obvious differences, there was no mistaking the curves and overall structure as anything but female. The alien approached, regarding Zhou with a mixture of curiosity and caution. When it spoke, the words seemed to form directly in Zhou's mind, bypassing her ears entirely. You are awake. Good. We were unsure if our healing techniques would be effective on your physiology. Zhou tried to sit up, but found her limbs unusually weak. Where am I? Who are you? The alien tilted her head slightly. You are in a medical facility in the city of Lumina, on the planet we call Genosha. I am Lyra, chief xenobiologist of the Genosian Science Council. Genosha. The name meant nothing to Zoe, but it was clear she was far from any charted human territory. My ship was badly damaged when it emerged from the spatial rift, Lyra finished. We were able to retrieve you and some of your technology, but much was lost. Zoe's heart sank at the news, but she pushed aside her emotions to focus on the immediate situation. Thank you for saving me. I'm Captain Zoe Chen of the United Earth Exploration Corps. I come in peace and hope we can. She was cut off as another alien entered the room, this one with a more authoritative bearing. The newcomer's mental voice was sharp and cold. That remains to be seen, alien. Your kind is not welcome here. Lyra turned to the new arrival, her posture deferential. High Counselor Vida, the patient has only just awoken. Perhaps we should. Enough, Lyra, Vida interrupted. You've done your duty in healing it. Now it's time for the Security Council to take over. Zoe's mind raced, trying to understand the sudden hostility. There must be some misunderstanding. I'm an explorer, not a threat. If you'll just allow me to contact my people. Silence. Veda's mental command was so forceful it made Zoe wince. You will be taken to a secure holding facility until we decide what to do with you. And let me be clear, any attempt to use your male energies will be met with severe consequences. Zoe blinked in confusion. Male energies, but I'm not. Before she could finish, 2 more Genosians entered, clearly security personnel. They approached Zoe's bed, some kind of energy restraints appearing in their hands. As they secured her wrists, Zoe locked eyes with Lyra, seeing a flicker of sympathy in the alien scientist's gaze. But it was quickly replaced by a mask of professional detachment. Zoe's mind whirled as she was led from the medical chamber. She'd made first contact with an advanced alien civilization, only to find herself a prisoner. And somehow, they seemed to think she was male, a fact that appeared to be the source of their hostility. As the doors closed behind her, Zoe couldn't shake the feeling that she had stumbled into a situation far more complex and dangerous than any she had encountered in her years of space exploration. Whatever was going on here, she would need all her wits and training to survive, and hopefully find a way back home. The corridors of the Genosian facility were a marvel of organic architecture, with walls that seemed to breathe and pulsate with life. Under different circumstances, Zoe would have been fascinated by the advanced biotechnology on display, but as she was marched along by her stern-faced guards, her mind was focused solely on survival and escape. They eventually reached a small bare room that was clearly meant to serve as a cell. The energy restraints were removed, and Zoe was none too gently pushed inside. The door, which seemed to be made of the same living material as the walls, sealed seamlessly behind her. Left alone, Zoe took stock of her situation. She was trapped on an unknown planet, surrounded by a species that seemed to regard her as a threat based on a mistaken assumption about her gender. Her ship and equipment were gone, leaving her with no way to contact Earth or prove her identity. But Zoe Chen hadn't become the youngest deep space explorer in Earth's history by giving up in the face of adversity. She began to systematically examine her cell, looking for any weakness or opportunity. As she ran her hands along the walls, she noticed something odd. The bioluminescent glow seemed to react to her touch, brightening slightly wherever her fingers made contact. Zoe frowned, considering the implications. If the entire structure was some form of living organism, perhaps there was a way to communicate with it or influence it somehow. Before she could pursue that line of thinking further, the door opened again. Lyra, the xenobiologist from earlier, entered alone. I apologize for the rough treatment. Lyra's mental voice conveyed genuine regret. Our society has complex relations with males. Zoe seized the opportunity to clear up the misunderstanding. But that's just it. I'm not male. I'm a woman, just like you seem to be. Lyra's large eyes widened in surprise. Impossible. Our scans clearly detected male energy patterns in your physiology. I don't know what your scans picked up, but I can assure you I'm 100% female, Zoe insisted. Maybe your technology isn't calibrated for human biology. The alien scientist seemed to consider this for a moment. It's possible. Our experience with other species is limited, but if what you say is true, it changes everything. Hope surged in Zoe's chest. Then you'll let me go. Contact my people. Lyra shook her head. It's not that simple. Even if you are female, you're still an unknown quantity. The High Council will need to be convinced. Zoe's shoulders slumped, but she refused to give up. Then help me convince them. You're a scientist. Surely you can see the value in learning about a new species in cultural exchange. A look of conflict passed over Lyra's alien features. I will try to speak on your behalf, but you must understand, our isolation is deeply ingrained in our culture. It won't be easy to change minds. As Lyra turned to leave, Zoe called out, "Wait, can you at least tell me why your people are so hostile to males? What happened to make you this way?" The xenobiologist paused at the door, her mental voice tinged with sadness. It's a long and painful history. Perhaps if the council agrees, I will be allowed to share it with you. With that, Lyra was gone, leaving Zoe alone once more with her thoughts and the faintly glowing walls of her cell. As the hours stretched on, Zoe alternated between restless pacing and quiet meditation, trying to piece together the puzzle of Genosian society. The reaction to her perceived maleness, the advanced biotechnology, the apparent isolation from other species, it all hinted at a complex and possibly tragic history. Eventually, exhaustion overtook her, and Zoe drifted into an uneasy sleep. Her dreams were a confused jumble of swirling vortexes, shimmering alien cities, and the vast, uncaring void of space. She awoke with a start to find Lyra standing over her, a look of urgency on her alien face. Quickly, Lyra's mental voice commanded, "The High Council has agreed to hear your case, but we must hurry. Everything depends on what happens next." As Zoe scrambled to her feet, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to step into a pivotal moment, not just for herself, but for two civilizations that had never meant to meet. Whatever came next would shape the future of human-Genosian relations, if there was to be any relation at all. With a deep breath to steady herself, Zoe nodded to Lyra. "I'm ready. Let's go face the music." The door opened, and together, human and alien stepped out into an uncertain future. Culture clash. The journey to the High Council chambers was a blur of twisting corridors and soaring archways, all pulsing with the same bioluminescent glow Zoe had observed in her cell. As they walked, Lyra briefed her on Genosian protocol. "Speak only when addressed directly," the alien scientist instructed. "Be respectful, but do not show subservience. Our leaders value strength and clarity of purpose." Zoe nodded, steeling herself for what was to come. "What about the misunderstanding about my gender?" Lyra's mental voice carried a note of uncertainty. "I've informed them of your claim, but they remain skeptical. Be prepared to defend yourself." Before Zoe could ask more, they arrived at a massive set of doors that seemed to ripple like water. As they slid open, Zoe took a deep breath and stepped into the chamber beyond. The council room was a vast, circular space with a domed ceiling that mimicked a starry sky. 7 Genosians sat on elevated platforms arranged in a semicircle, their silvery hair and shimmering skin making them appear almost ethereal. At the center was High Councilor Vida, her vired eyes fixed on Zoe with an intensity that was almost physical. "Approach, alien," Veda's mental command reverberated through Zoe's mind. Squaring her shoulders, Zoe walked to the center of the room, feeling the weight of 14 alien eyes upon her. She fought the urge to fidget under their scrutiny. "You claim to be female, despite our scans indicating otherwise," Veda began without preamble. "Explain this discrepancy." Zoe chose her words carefully. "With respect, High Counselor, I believe your technology may be calibrated for Gynosian biology, not human. I assure you, I am a woman, as we define it on Earth." A ripple of mental murmurs passed through the council. Another member, with slightly greener skin, leaned forward. "And how do you define it, alien?" "On Earth, biological sex is determined by chromosomes, hormones, and physical characteristics," Zoe explained. "Gender is a more complex social and personal identity, but by any measure used on my world, I am female." The green-skinned counselor's eyes narrowed. "Yet you exude energies our instruments read as male. How do you account for this?" Zoe frowned, puzzled. "I'm not sure what you mean by male energies. Perhaps if you could explain." "Enough," Veda cut in. "Whether you are male or female by your standards is irrelevant. The fact remains that your presence here is a threat to our way of life." Zoe felt a flare of frustration but kept her voice level. "I mean no threat to anyone. I'm an explorer seeking peaceful contact with other civilizations. If I violated any laws or boundaries, it was entirely unintentional." Another counselor, this one with a swirling pattern on her skin, spoke up. "Intention is irrelevant. The isolation protocols are clear. No outsiders are permitted on Genosha, regardless of gender." "Then why am I still alive?" Zoe challenged, deciding to take a risk. "Why heal me? Why this hearing if your laws are so absolute?" A tense silence fell over the chamber. Zoe could sense the counselors communicating among themselves, but their thoughts were shielded from her. Finally, Viva spoke again. "Your arrival has created a unique situation. There are some among us who believe it may be time to reassess certain policies." Zoe's heart leaped at this admission, but she kept her expression neutral. "I would be honored to participate in any cultural exchange your people deem appropriate. Earth has much to offer, as I'm sure Genosia does." "You misunderstand." Veda's mental tone was sharp. "This is not about exchange. This is about the very survival of our society." Confusion and alarm warred within Zoe. "I don't understand. How could my presence threaten your entire civilization?" It was Lyra who answered, stepping forward despite the disapproving glares from some counselors. "Our isolation is not merely a policy, Captain Chen. It is a necessity born of our history and biology." With a gesture from Vida, a holographic display sprang to life in the center of the chamber. Zoe gasped as she saw images of what she assumed was ancient Genosha, a world of sprawling cities and advanced technology, not unlike her impressions of the present. "Millennia ago," Lyra explained, "our world was not so different from yours. We had a binary gender system, we explored the stars, we interacted with other species. But then, the images shifted, showing scenes of devastation, cities in ruins, Genosians suffering from some kind of plague, riots in the streets. A virus engineered by our enemies in an interstellar war." Veda continued the narrative. "It targeted males specifically, driving them to violent madness before killing them. Within a generation, our population was decimated." Zoe watched in horror as the full scale of the tragedy unfolded before her. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "But surely, after all this time—" "The virus mutated," Lyra said quietly. "It became part of our very genetic code. Every male child born to our people carries it, dormant until puberty. We had no choice but to prevent such births entirely." The implications hit Zoe like a physical blow. "You mean, for thousands of years, your entire species has been female," Veda finished. "Through a combination of genetic engineering and technological adaptation, we have continued our species without the need for males. And we have thrived, free from the violence and discord that plagued us in the past." Zoe's mind raced, trying to process the enormous cultural and biological gulf between their peoples. "But then, the male energy you detected in me is something our world hasn't seen in millennia," Lyra confirmed. "Your presence here is more than just a violation of our isolation. It is a reminder of a painful past and a potential threat to the stability we've achieved." "I am no threat," Zoe insisted. and neither are males of my species. Surely you can see that condemning an entire gender based on the actions of your ancient enemies is what we have to do to survive. Veda's mental voice was cold. You cannot begin to understand the choices we've had to make. A tense silence fell over the chamber. Zoe looked from one alien face to another, seeing a mix of hostility, fear, and, in some cases, curiosity. Finally, the counselor with swirling skin patterns spoke again. The question remains, what are we to do with this alien now that she is here? We cannot simply return her to her people without risking exposure. Nor can we allow her to roam freely among us. Another added, the cultural contamination alone would be disastrous. Zoe saw her chance and seized it. What if I could prove to you that contact with my people, with the wider galaxy, doesn't have to be a threat? Give me a chance to show you that diversity can be a strength, not a weakness. Veda's eyes narrowed. And how would you propose to do that, alien? Let me work with your scientists, Zoe said, thinking quickly. I have knowledge of technologies and cultures from across known space. Together, we might find solutions to problems you haven't even considered, and in return, I'll learn about your society, your advancements. She turned to Lyra, seeing a glimmer of support in the xenobiologist's eyes. It would be a controlled cultural exchange, a trial run to see if broader contact might be possible in the future. The council chamber erupted in a flurry of silent communication. Zoe stood still, heart pounding, knowing that her fate, and possibly the fate of future human-Genosian relations, hung in the balance. After what felt like an eternity, Veda raised a hand for silence. Her violet eyes bored into Zoe with an intensity that was almost physical. Your proposal is, not without merit, the High Counselor admitted grudgingly. But make no mistake, alien, this is not an acceptance of your presence here. It is merely a stay of execution. Zoe nodded solemnly, understanding the precariousness of her position. You will work under strict supervision, Veda continued. Any attempt to communicate with your people or to spread your influence beyond approved channels will result in immediate termination. Is that clear? Perfectly, Zoe replied, relief and trepidation warring within her. Then it is decided, Veda announced. Lyra, as the one who first studied the alien, you will be responsible for overseeing this experiment. Do not make us regret this decision. As the council session adjourned and Zoe was led from the chamber by Lyra, her mind whirled with the implications of what she'd learned. She had won a temporary reprieve, but the real challenge was just beginning. Somehow, she would have to bridge a gulf of biology, history, and culture wider than any she had encountered in her years of space exploration, and all while navigating the complex politics of a society that saw her very existence as a potential threat. As they walked, Lyra's mental voice reached out to her. You've been given a rare opportunity, Captain Chen. I hope, for both our sakes, that you use it wisely. Zoe nodded, her jaw set with determination. I intend to, for both our peoples. The doors of the council chamber closed behind them, and Zoe stepped into a new chapter of her unexpected adventure on Genosha, acutely aware that the fate of two civilizations might rest on her shoulders. Unlikely alliance. The days following the council hearing blurred together for Zoe as she was thrust into the heart of Genosian scientific research. Lyra had set up a secure laboratory where Zoe could work alongside a select team of alien scientists, each specializing in a different field of study. Despite the initial tension, Zoe found herself increasingly fascinated by Genosian technology. Their mastery of biotechnology far surpassed anything she had seen on Earth or other known worlds. Entire buildings seemed to be grown rather than built, and many of their tools were semi-sentient organisms. This is incredible, Zoe marveled as she examined a living computer interface. The potential applications for medicine, for environmental restoration. Lyra, who had become something of a reluctant mentor, tilted her head curiously. You seem more interested in how our technology could benefit your people than in using it yourself. Zoe smiled. That's what exploration is about for us. Not conquest, but learning and sharing knowledge for the betterment of all. As they worked, Zoe began to notice subtle shifts in the attitudes of her Genosian colleagues. Their initial wariness gave way to curiosity, then to a cautious respect as they realized the breadth of knowledge she brought from her travels. One day, as they were analyzing the properties of a particularly resilient Genosian alloy, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Laura's mental voice was tinged with panic as she addressed the team. There's been a containment breach in the lower levels, some kind of radiation leak. Zoe's explorer instincts kicked in immediately. What kind of radiation? How can I help? Laura hesitated, clearly torn between protocol and necessity. It's related to our energy production. The containment fields are failing, and our protective gear isn't designed for human physiology. I've dealt with radiation before, Zoe insisted. My ship's emergency kit should have universal protection. Let me help. After a moment's deliberation, Laura nodded. Follow me, quickly. They raced through the twisting corridors, descending deeper into the facility than Zoe had been allowed before. As they approached the affected area, Zoe could feel a strange tingling sensation on her skin. This radiation, she panted as they ran, it's not like anything I've encountered. Lyra's mental voice was grim. It's a byproduct of our main power source. Harmless to us in small doses, but in these concentrations. They rounded a corner to find a scene of chaos. Several Genosian workers lay unconscious, their skin an unhealthy pallor. A pulsing, crystalline structure dominated the center of the room, crackling with energy. Zoe quickly donned her protective gear and assessed the situation. The containment field generators, she pointed. They're overloading. We need to reroute the power flow. Lyra's eyes widened. How did you? Similar setup to some alien tech I studied, Zoe explained hurriedly. I can't interface with your systems, but if you follow my instructions. What followed was an intense collaboration, with Zoe shouting directions as Lyra's nimble fingers danced over the alien controls. Other Genosian scientists joined in, following Zoe's lead despite their ingrained distrust of outsiders. After several tense minutes, the crackling energy subsided, and the alarms fell silent. Zoe sagged against a wall, exhausted but triumphant. We did it, she breathed. Lyra stared at her with a mixture of awe and confusion. You saved us. Why? Zoe met her gaze steadily. Because it was the right thing to do. Because despite our differences, I believe our peoples can help each other. A long moment of silence passed between them, broken only by the sounds of medical teams arriving to tend to the injured workers. Finally, Lyra spoke, her mental voice softer than Zoe had ever heard it. Perhaps we have misjudged you, Zoe Chen, and your people. It was the first time the alien scientist had used her first name, and Zoe felt a warmth that had nothing to do with residual radiation. I think, Lara continued hesitantly, there is something you should see, something that may help you understand us better. Intrigued, Zoe followed Lyra to a secure terminal. After inputting a complex series of commands, a holographic display sprang to life, showing what appeared to be a massive underground complex. This, Lyra explained, is the sanctuary. It's where we keep our most closely guarded secret. The image zoomed in, revealing row upon row of stasis pods. Inside each was a Genosian male, suspended in time. Zoe gasped, but I thought that all males had been eliminated, Lara finished. Not quite. When the virus first struck, our ancestors managed to place a small population of uninfected males in stasis. For millennia, we've been searching for a cure, hoping one day to reawaken them and restore balance to our species. The implications were staggering. Zoe's mind raced with questions, but one rose above the rest. Why are you showing me this? Lara's large eyes seemed to shimmer with emotion. Because your actions today have shown me that perhaps isolation isn't the answer. Your knowledge, your perspective, they might be the key to finally solving this puzzle. Zoe felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This wasn't just about cultural exchange anymore. It was about the future of an entire species. "I'll do everything I can to help," she promised solemnly. Lyra nodded, then tensed, as if listening to a distant voice. "The High Council is convening an emergency session to discuss today's events. Your presence is requested." As they made their way back to the council chambers, Zoe couldn't shake the feeling that she stood on the precipice of something monumental. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, and the next few hours would determine whether they moved towards a future of collaboration or renewed isolation. With a deep breath, Zoe steeled herself for the challenges ahead. Whatever came next, she was determined to prove that humanity and Genosha could forge a bond stronger than their differences. The doors to the council chamber loomed before them, a threshold between worlds. With one last exchange of glances with Lyra, Zoe stepped forward to face her destiny. Revelation and rebellion. The council chamber was thick with tension as Zoe entered, flanked by Lyra and several other Genosian scientists who had witnessed her actions during the crisis. High Counselor Veda's piercing gaze locked onto Zoe the moment she stepped into the room. "Captain Chen," Veda's mental voice resonated with a mix of emotions Zoe couldn't quite decipher. "Your actions today were unexpected." Zoe stood tall, meeting the High Counselor's eyes. "I did what anyone would do in that situation. The safety of your people was at stake." A ripple of mental murmurs passed through the assembled counselors. The one with swirling skin patterns leaned forward. "And yet, by doing so, you've accessed highly sensitive areas of our facility and gained knowledge that could pose a threat to our security." "Knowledge that saved lives," Lyra interjected, surprising Zoe with her boldness. "High Counselor, esteemed members of the Council, I believe it's time we reconsider our stance on isolation. Captain Chen has proven that outsiders can be allies, not just threats." Veda's eyes narrowed. "You overstep, Lyra. The isolation protocols have kept us safe for millennia. We cannot abandon them based on the actions of a single alien." "But what if those protocols are holding us back?" Another voice rang out, and Zoe was shocked to see one of the junior scientists from the lab step forward. "High Counselor, respected elders, I've worked alongside Captain Chen these past weeks. The knowledge she brings from beyond our world, it could be the key to solving problems we've struggled with for generations." The chamber erupted into a cacophony of silent communication, the air practically buzzing with the intensity of the Genosians' mental exchanges. Zoe stood still, acutely aware that the fate of future human-Genosian relations hung in the balance. Finally, Veda raised a hand for silence. "It seems," she said slowly, "that our guest has made quite an impression, but impressions can be deceiving. Captain Chen, what do you have to say for yourself?" Zoe took a deep breath, knowing this might be her only chance to change the course of history. "High Counselor, esteemed members of the Council, I came to your world by accident, but I believe there are no true accidents in the universe. My presence here, the knowledge I bring, the perspective I offer, these could be the catalyst for a new era of growth and understanding for both our peoples." She paused, gauging the reactions of the Genosians before continuing. "I've seen the wonders your civilization has created, the challenges you've overcome. But I've also seen the cost of your isolation, the stagnation in certain areas of research, the fear that underlies your incredible achievements." A gasp rippled through the chamber at her boldness, but Zoe pressed on. "I know about the sanctuary," she admitted, causing several counselors to rise in alarm. "I know the real reason behind your isolation, and I believe that together we might find a solution that has eluded you for millennia." The silence that followed was deafening. Veda's violet eyes bored into Zoe with an intensity that was almost physical. "You play a dangerous game, alien. The sanctuary is our most closely guarded secret. How did you?" "I told her." Lyra stepped forward, her mental voice steady despite the risk she was taking. "Because I believe she might be our best hope for a cure." The chamber exploded into chaos, counselors arguing silently among themselves, while others demanded explanations. Zoe stood her ground, watching as millennia of carefully maintained order began to fracture. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the tumult, not mental, but physical. Enough. All eyes turned to the entrance of the chamber, where a figure stood that made Zoe's breath catch in her throat. It was a Geonosian, but unlike any she had seen before. Taller, broader-shouldered, with a distinctly masculine energy it seemed to radiate through the room. Impossible, Vida whispered, her composure shattered for the first time since Zoe had met her. The newcomer strode into the chamber, his gaze sweeping over the assembled counselors before settling on Zoe. "So," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "you're the alien who's been causing such a stir." Lara's mental voice was filled with awe and confusion. Zoran? But how? The stasis was terminated, Zoran finished. By me. I've been awake for some time, observing from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal myself. He turned to address the council, his presence commanding attention. For too long, we've hidden behind our fears, our past traumas. We've let the actions of our ancient enemies dictate the course of our civilization. But in doing so, we've become prisoners of our own making. Zoran gestured towards Zoe. This alien, this human, has shown us in a matter of weeks what we've been blind to for millennia. That isolation breeds stagnation, that diversity can be a strength, not a weakness. Vida found her voice, rising to confront the awakened male. You have no authority here, Zoran. Your very existence is a threat to everything we've built. Is it? Zoran challenged. Or is it the key to our salvation? The virus that nearly destroyed us is still out there, evolving, waiting. Our current path leads only to slow extinction. It's time for a new approach. As Zoe watched the confrontation unfold, she realized she was witnessing a pivotal moment in Geonosian history. The carefully maintained order of millennia was crumbling, replaced by a chaos pregnant with possibility. Lara's mental voice reached out to her, tinged with a mixture of fear and excitement. What happens next will determine the future of our entire species. Zoe nodded, her explorer's heart racing at the magnitude of the moment. And perhaps, she replied softly, the future of mine as well. The council chamber had become a battleground of ideas, with Zoran and his supporters on one side, the old guard led by Vida on the other, and Zoe caught in the middle, a catalyst for change on a world that had resisted it for thousands of years. As arguments raged and alliances shifted, Zoe knew that her actions in the coming hours would shape the destiny of two civilizations. The weight of that responsibility was enormous, but so was the potential for a brighter, more connected future. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, ready to play her part in the unfolding drama of Geonosian rebirth and human-alien cooperation. Race against time. The heated debate in the council chamber showed no signs of abating. Zoran's unexpected appearance had thrown the carefully maintained order of Geonosian society into chaos. Factions were forming before Zoe's eyes, those who saw the potential for change, and those who clung desperately to the old ways. Amidst the tumult, Zoe's mind raced. She knew she had to act, to somehow channel this energy into a constructive direction before it tore Geonosian society apart. An idea began to form, audacious in its scope, but potentially revolutionary in its impact. Enough. Zoe's voice cut through the mental cacophony, surprising even herself with its authority. All eyes turned to her, a mix of curiosity and wariness in their alien gazes. You stand at a crossroads, Zoe continued, her heart pounding but her voice steady. But fighting amongst yourselves solves nothing. You need proof. Proof that change is not only possible but necessary. Vida's eyes narrowed. And how do you propose to provide such proof, alien? Zoe took a deep breath. A challenge. Give me and a team of your scientists, including Zoran, access to your best resources. Let us work together to find a cure for the virus that has haunted your people for millennia. If we succeed, it proves that collaboration and diversity can achieve what isolation could not. If we fail, I'll submit myself to whatever punishment you deem fit. A hush fell over the chamber as the Genosians considered her proposal. Zoran was the first to break the silence, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I accept this challenge." Lyra stepped forward, her mental voice firm. "As do I. It's time we faced our fears head-on." One by one, other scientists in the chamber voiced their support. Even some of the counselors who had been staunchly opposed to Zoe's presence began to waver. Vida remained silent for a long moment, her violet eyes unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "You play a dangerous game, Captain Chen, but perhaps it is a game we need to play. You have one lunar cycle, 28 of your Earth days, not a day more." Zoe nodded solemnly, acutely aware of the magnitude of the task before her. "Thank you, High Counselor. We won't let you down." As the council session adjourned, Zoe found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Lyra and Zoran quickly assembled a team of Genosha's brightest minds, each bringing unique expertise to the challenge ahead. They were given access to a state-of-the-art laboratory deep within the heart of the sanctuary. As Zoe stepped into the vast underground complex for the first time, she was struck by the sight of thousands of stasis pods stretching as far as the eye could see, each containing a sleeping Genosian male. "It's overwhelming, isn't it?" Zoran's deep voice startled her from her reverie. "To think, the fate of all these lives rests on what we do in the next 28 days." Zoe nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. "We won't fail them. We can't." The days that followed were a blur of intense work and groundbreaking discoveries. Zoe's knowledge of xenobiology from her exploration days proved invaluable, offering fresh perspectives on problems that had stymied Genosian scientists for generations. Zoran's unique physiology provided crucial insights into how the virus had mutated over time. His presence also served as a constant reminder of what was at stake, the potential rebirth of an entire gender of their species. Lyra's brilliance in genetic engineering allowed them to make rapid progress in understanding the virus's mechanisms. Her growing friendship with Zoe also served as a living example of the potential for human-Genosian cooperation. A new understanding. The days following the breakthrough were a whirlwind of activity. News of the cure spread rapidly throughout Genosian society, sparking celebrations and heated debates in equal measure. The High Council, led by a chastened but adapting Vida, worked tirelessly to manage the monumental changes facing their civilization. Zoe found herself at the center of it all, hailed as a hero by many Genosians, while still viewed with suspicion by others. As she recovered in the medical bay, a steady stream of visitors came to see her, scientists eager to discuss the implications of their discovery, officials seeking her input on policy changes, and ordinary Genosians simply curious to meet the alien who had changed their world. One morning, as Zoe was reviewing data on a tablet, a familiar figure entered her room. It was Zoran, looking stronger and more vibrant than ever. "How are you feeling?" Zoe asked, setting aside her work. Zoran's deep laugh filled the room. "Like a new man, quite literally. The cure has done more than just neutralize the virus. It seems to have unlocked genetic potential that had been suppressed for millennia. We're seeing similar effects in the first group of awakened males." Zoe's eyes widened. "That's incredible. The implications for your species' evolution are staggering," Zoran finished. "But that's not why I'm here. The High Council has reached a decision about your fate and the future of human-Genosian relations. They've asked me to escort you to the chamber." As they walked through the corridors of the sanctuary, now bustling with activity as more males were carefully awakened and integrated, Zoe felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Despite their success, she knew that centuries of isolationist thinking wouldn't disappear overnight. They entered the council chamber to find it transformed. Where once 7 counselors sat in judgment, now there were 14, an equal number of males and females, representing the new balance in Genosian leadership. Vida stood at the center, her expression unreadable. "Captain Zoe Chen of Earth," she began, her mental voice resonating through the chamber. Your actions have irrevocably altered the course of our civilization. The question before us now is, where do we go from here? Zoe stepped forward, her voice steady. High Counselor, esteemed members of the Council, I stand before you not just as an individual, but as a representative of humanity and the principles of exploration and cooperation that we hold dear. The challenges your people face in the coming years are immense, but so are the opportunities. She paused, looking around the chamber. I propose a formal alliance between Earth and Geonosia, a sharing of knowledge, technology, and culture that will benefit both our worlds. Together, we can forge a path to the stars that neither of us could achieve alone. A murmur rippled through the assembled counselors. Zoran stepped forward, his deep voice filling the chamber. I second this proposal. Our isolation has ended. It's time we took our place in the galactic community. Vida raised a hand for silence, her violet eyes fixed on Zoe. Your proposal is bold, Captain Chen, but perhaps boldness is what we need in these unprecedented times. She turned to address the council. I move that we accept Captain Chen's proposal for an alliance with the following conditions: a gradual, controlled opening of our borders, joint scientific ventures with a focus on medical and environmental research, and the establishment of a cultural exchange program. The vote was swift and unanimous. As the council's decision was announced, Zoe felt a wave of emotion wash over her. What had begun as an accidental crash landing had led to this moment of galactic significance. In the days that followed, Zoe worked tirelessly with Lyra, Zoran, and a team of Geonosian diplomats to lay the groundwork for the new alliance. Plans were made for the first official Earth delegation to visit Geonosia, and for a group of Geonosian scientists and diplomats to make the journey to Earth. As the day of her departure approached, Zoe found herself on a balcony overlooking the sprawling city of Lumina, its bioluminescent structures glowing softly in the twilight. Lyra joined her, the alien scientist's presence now a familiar comfort. It's hard to believe how much has changed. Lyra's mental voice was tinged with wonder. A few months ago, the idea of an alien walking freely among us was unthinkable. Now, we stand on the brink of a new era. Zoe nodded, her gaze on the horizon. Change is never easy, but often it's necessary. Your people have shown incredible adaptability and courage in facing these challenges. Lyra turned to face her, her large eyes shimmering with emotion. We couldn't have done it without you, Zoe. You've given us more than a cure. You've given us hope, a future we couldn't have imagined. We did it together, Zoe replied, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. And that's how we'll face whatever comes next, together. As the first of Geonosia's twin moons rose in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the city, Zoe felt a profound sense of accomplishment and anticipation. The adventure that had begun with a spatial anomaly and a crash landing had opened up a universe of possibilities. Tomorrow, she would board a Geonosian ship for the journey back to Earth, carrying with her the weight of history and the promise of a shared future. There would be challenges ahead, cultural misunderstandings to navigate, political hurdles to overcome, and the vast distances of space to conquer. But as Zoe looked out over the alien cityscape that had become a second home, she knew that the bonds forged in crisis and triumph would endure. Humanity and Geonosia, two civilizations that might never have met, were now inextricably linked. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, beckoning with the promise of new discoveries and shared adventures. Zoe Chen, explorer and ambassador, stood ready to lead the way into a future limited only by the bounds of imagination and the spirit of cooperation. As night fell on Geonosia, a new dawn was breaking for two species united by circumstance and bound by hope. The greatest exploration, Zoe realized, was just beginning.